next question for you. What do brides need to be thinking about when it comes to all the health and safety things?
All right, so the health and safety things are probably the first things you think about when you think of COVID. Things like, you know, the masks and the gloves and things like that. So I've got 7 things for you. The first one is that some venues may be adding what some people are calling sanitation stations throughout the venue with hand sanitizer for the guests. So you can first check with your venue and find out if that is something that they are offering. And if they're not, I would highly recommend that you create your own. What you'll want to do is have hand sanitizer and or wipes basically everywhere.
You can build it into your centerpieces.
Oh, you know that's going to be on Pinterest. At bare minimum, you're going to want to put them in the following places. You're going to want to put them where people are likely to shake hands. So for instance, near the entrance. You're going to want to put them when they're moving between rooms, so by all the doors. And you're going to want to put them like when they're pulling out their seats, so have them at every table. The next one is what I feel like is the big obvious one. Consider providing disposable gloves and masks for your guests. And think about what the easiest way to distribute them is. Is it going to be having it at the front door with someone handing them out? Is it going to be putting them, this is what my fiance's work does. They put them each one in a plastic Ziploc bag. So when they're getting handed out, no matter what happens, they're still sanitary.
Yeah, at the wedding and for all of my brides, if I'm doing your wedding at any time coming up, my husband is my second shooter. And he and I both wear masks and gloves the whole time. And we stay 6 feet away from everyone, including the bride and groom. It's, you know, there's lots of guidelines that need to be followed. But yeah, having them on a sign-in table, like where guests sign in, it'd be great just to have them in little baggies right there, because then everyone can grab them as they come in. That's a great idea.
And one thing that I found in my research that I thought was really neat, that historically speaking, and if you think about it, you'll probably recognize this, fashion gloves were considered an elegant accessory choice. So like if you're thinking like Grace Kelly or Audrey Hepburn, so you can think about wearing them with like handshakes in mind if everyone's wearing gloves. But if there aren't gloves, or if you don't want to go all the way with handshakes, if you want to remain, you know, contactless, you can consider replacing handshakes with contactless greetings. And I've got some ideas for you. So you can bow to each other, you can wave, you can wink, you can give a thumbs up, do an air high five. That's one of my favorites. I think they're so fun. If you're not familiar with the air high five, it's like you go for the high five and then you just like stop real short. And then you just have to make sure that you actually succeed at stopping short. And then the air hug is one of my all-time favorites because it's so silly. Oh, I'm thinking of the one where you just like hug yourself. Everybody hugs themselves.
I do the live streaming for my Catholic church. And so do lots of, we call them virtual hugs. And we just go like this, hug.
I love it.
I've been a hugger and I've had to not hug anymore and it's hard. So I just do the motion so I feel better mentally.
Yeah. And so one thing you can do if you don't have a guideline from the state telling you to stay at a table, you can replace the receiving line with a gesture line. And you can do any of those, any of the ones you want. You can mix and match and just have fun kind of greeting everybody.
The bride and groom on Sunday at my last wedding had a white mask with a white bow, and then the groom had a black mask with a black bow on it. So it was like a dressy face mask. And I thought those were cute. Of course, I took photos of that.
That's so adorable. The next health and safety item that you might not think of right off the bat is to consider placing signs and reminders to have everyone keep social distancing throughout the wedding. So a couple ideas you might have, you could say, If you want it to be wedding related, it could say something like spread love, not germs. Please keep 6 feet apart. Or I saw an Etsy printable that you could buy for, I think it was like $5, and it was actually elegant looking. And it said, thank you for maintaining social distancing. We are taking all necessary precautions to keep our guests safe and healthy. Or you could have a sign at the entrance with kind of broader guidelines. So like it could say, please wear a face mask, practice social distancing, do not enter if you feel sick. And I like that last reminder because people might not think of that one, and it might give them a chance to have a second thought before they come in and accidentally infect people.
Yeah.
So the next one is one that I know I would not have thought of. And it is to check with each of your vendors to find out what their protocols are and what they're doing to keep their staff and your guests safe. And this may seem like it's not necessary. They're they're doing their job. Of course, they're going to have protocols in place. But you can't just assume, and you can't be too safe.
Yeah, there's vendors that I've spoken with in like Facebook groups that haven't even considered wearing a mask to go photograph a wedding. And
oh man,
first I called the county in my county to find out what my rules are as a small business owner. And for myself, I was going to wear a mask and gloves anyway, but that is also a requirement. So I think you're right. We can't assume that people are following the rules that they're supposed to. And you might have stricter rules where you're getting married than where your vendor comes from as well. Instruct them what you prefer as well.
I like that.
You have a choice in that. The vendors, like me as a vendor, I'm providing a service. And if my clients want me to take more precautions, then of course I will.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions that you can ask them to start with.
Good.
You can ask them how they clean their rented items. You can ask them if they're going to be wearing things like masks and gloves. And like Jen said, you can require it if they say no. You can ask how many touch points each guest will have with staff. And this is one where the lower the number, the better, because each touch point increases the risk of transmission of something. So then any other questions you might have about personal safety or guest safety, just add those to your list and ask all of your vendors, each and every one of them, all of the questions. You cannot be too safe on this one, seriously. So, on to a more fun topic, food! So, if you were planning on having buffet or family-style catering, you should probably check with your caterer. For instance, in Ohio right now, no buffets are allowed unless a waiter is serving you from the line. So some caterers may opt to do that. Others may opt to nix the buffet altogether. So you'll want to talk to your caterer and find out how they're handling that. They might require you to switch to a plated meal. And if that's the case, you'll need to reach out to your guests for meal counts or include the meal counts in the invitation. So that's something to...
And to find out from that caterer how they screen their employees that are serving food and what precautions they're taking, which of course you have in all of your notes to check with all your vendors and what processes they're following. But going from a buffet to a seated means more staff for serving, and or sometimes it'll take more time too. So you may have to adjust your wedding timeline as well because the food portion might take longer.
Oh, that is a tip-top tip. And then another one, if you were planning on having an hors d'oeuvres display, you might want to talk to your caterer. You might have to switch to something like past bites.
Yeah, a lot of my brides are cutting out hors d'oeuvres altogether, just not putting it in play. All right, what do brides need to be thinking about when it comes to providing an excellent guest experience?
Giving the guests a good experience is a big part of this. So I got 6 things for you guys. Buckle up. The first one is when you're ready to send invitations, you're going to want to create an insert card with a few more instructions because the guests are going to need to know what's expected of them in more ways than before.
One tip I'll insert right here because everything you're going to talk about can still apply. But many of my brides are now doing online RSVPs instead of mailing the information with a bunch of information, which then costs more to mail the invitation. They're doing one for their wedding website and then having all of this information on the wedding website, which is helpful because then if it changes last minute or the venue changes or the date changes, everything's always updated on that website. So that, and you can get free wedding websites as well. So from like Wedding Wires.
The things that you'll want to include if you are doing paper invites or if you've got a website, it's what you'll want to include on the website. Expectations on face coverings, expectations on social distancing, expectations about food service and any changes there, or expectations about any other safety measures you plan to apply to your event. I had a little note here, be prepared to communicate frequently with your guest, which leads me to number 2. If you hadn't planned on getting a wedding website, I know not everyone gets them. Yeah, Jen called it. If you hadn't planned on getting it, I'm going to recommend the heck out of this one. Now is the time to get one anyway. I mean, first of all, besides the point, it's an amazing place to store everything from your love story to your registry, etc. It's really perfect for setting up your frequently asked questions page. And that will deflect a ton of questions that you're going to be getting left and right from your guests about everything that's going on. I mean, they have questions on everything from dress code to room blocks. You really just want to comfort them so they can ease their way into this party without having any worries. Highly recommended. My next little recommendation on the guest experience is to consider registering for a digital registry if you haven't already. I think a lot of them are going digital anyways, if I'm not mistaken. But just in case, it makes things super easy for the loved ones that might not be able to attend out of concerns for the virus. Because there are going to be a lot more people that can't attend than would have in the past.
And on that wedding website, a lot of my brides are putting, first and foremost, if you're not feeling well and you've already RSVP'd to our wedding, the gift to us is for you not to attend. There's a certain obligation that family members feel for a wedding. And I know I've attended a wedding when I was feeling under the weather because I didn't want to miss this beautiful moment in my family member's life. But in this point, you can risk lives. So, putting something sweet or kind or whatever on that wedding website is probably pretty helpful.
Really good idea. I wanted to point out one registry in particular because there's probably more that do this. I just came across the fact that this one does this and it got me really excited. The Knot Registry happens to have products and experiences and cash. Are there a lot that do all three now?
Zola does that too. Most of my brides love Zola. And again, this is in California, it could be different. It's nice that wherever you want to do that online registration, that you choose that one for your wedding website, because then everything goes together, the RSVP list, everything. So like the Knot Registry and Zola all have the wedding experience, all have free wedding websites, all have RSVPs online, all have that information so that a person can last minute un-RSVP if they're not feeling well. So both of those are and what most people use.
One thing about the Knots experiences, they have honeymoon experiences, which I've seen a lot of those and I love that idea. But I just discovered in my research for this that they have puppy adoption.
No.
Puppy adoption.
I heard that adoptions of pets have gone skyrocketed during the coronavirus. That's funny that they would add that to a wedding registry.
I was like, now I know what registry we're using when we get married. It's happening.
Register for your whole living room furniture. That's your whole registry even. It's kind of cool. Very, very cool.
So the next one we touched on earlier, and this one is really, Jen was saying, what a great idea it is. And I kind of think it should be an automatic from here on out, personally. It's such a good idea. And this is live streaming your wedding. It's, if you're tech phobic, don't worry. It can be really simple to set up. Really, really simple. You can set it up by using a Facebook Live in a group with a cell phone. That's all it takes.
Or a Zoom call or whatever. And in fact, I know I've heard of a number of videographers in California now who include that as part of their videography service. So you'll get a beautiful video of your wedding that's like a movie, right? But they'll also set up the live streaming and stuff like that, which is really nice. Then you don't have to do it or think about it or run into some tech issues. If you're already getting a videographer, I would ask them if they will include that in the package.
Love, 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 love. There was one that I found in particular that I really liked a lot. It was called Don't Let the Day Go By, and it includes a digital photo booth. So your guests can not just watch the live stream, but they can participate in a photo booth that has games as part of it, and they can win prizes, and they can buy a framed picture of their photo booth photo. And they have, if you want to go even bigger, like they do with like the in-home weddings, you can have them send packages to your guests with live flowers and catering and cakes. And
Stop.
This place is amazing.
We'll definitely include that information down below. That is so exciting. Wow.
Yeah, super cool. So the next thing for your guest experience is, we're all probably pretty familiar with the traditional wedding weekend, how there's like the rehearsal and rehearsal dinner, and then there's the brunch afterwards. And that's going to be out of whack for a lot of people who had to postpone and ended up with maybe like a Thursday wedding. Or maybe you did a mini moni and then a sequel wedding. And so for those who are doing the mini moni and the sequel wedding, a couple ideas for you. You can do, before or after the mini moni, you can have a dinner party for those closest to you and take advantage of the smaller format by having more intimate activities. Like each guest, you can go around and have each guest share memories of the couple.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's cute.
I love it. And then another idea you can do, if you missed out on the bachelor and bachelorette parties, after the sequel wedding, you can have a joint batch event that's a big party for like both sides, for like all your friends, and it's just everyone celebrating you guys and marriage itself and just like having a good time. The last one for your guest experience, if you're still finding yourself with extra free time, like if you're still in the quarantine or anything like that, you can consider using it to personalize your day even further than all the personalizing you've already done. So like brainstorm ways to make it even more about your story, your interests, your love. So one thing you could do is write notes to all your guests. That could be a pretty big project, but it could be really sweet and intimate. You could come up with creative favors that really speak to something in your story. Just infuse your style, your personality, your love story into your wedding in whatever extra ways you can. Really make use of the extra time in that way.
For sure. That is great advice. How can brides be taking care of themselves in this whole process? We worry so much about the planning of the wedding that we don't really take as good of care of ourselves as we maybe process as a whole. But now with COVID and everything that's happened, the stress has kind of ratcheted up even higher. So what can brides do to take better care of themselves?
Yeah, you nailed it. Is critical. So the first one is, a lot of people have, unfortunately lost loved ones.
Wow.
And it can feel bittersweet to be finally getting the chance to celebrate and have your wedding, but knowing that it took the passing of an event that took someone so close to you. And so what a lot of people are doing is they're finding ways to honor the loved ones that they have lost in the pandemic. And you can also honor loved ones that you've lost in general, but find ways to honor them in the ceremony or just in the wedding itself. And so some ideas for ways you can do that. You can take a moment in the ceremony to light a candle for them, maybe say a few words. One way that I've seen that's actually pretty popular is putting photos of them in a locket and putting the locket in your bouquet.
Yes.
This one's popular. You can create a memory table with photos and candles.
Photographed each of these.
Or have an empty seat saved in the front row, maybe with their photo on it.
One thing that we did at my daughter's wedding, my father passed away suddenly in July before my daughter got married in December. And she was planning on, she has her own wedding dress, but she was planning on wearing my wedding dress when she danced with her dad. What we did, because we lost my father, was we played my father a videotape of me dancing with my father at my wedding in that wedding dress while she was dancing with her father. And it was just because my dad was not somebody who would want to be like on display or anything like that. Like that was not his scene. This was a way to honor him and sort of incorporate everything that she already had planned for her wedding.
That is super sweet and really unique.
Yeah, it was.
I love that. The other way that you can take care of yourself right now, if you haven't already done this, think about the fact that if your wedding has been postponed or you've had to change things and it's looking like the wedding's not going to look like you originally expected, that is a loss. With any loss, you're going to have to experience some grief. It's okay that you're experiencing some grief, for one thing. And if you haven't already, I would recommend that you sit down with your fiance and process the emotions of having to deal with your wedding being postponed or not look like you had originally hoped and expected. Because this grief is real, and this is a really good chance to strengthen your bond together.
You've sunk not just money, but time, energy, effort, and love into planning this big wedding. And it's like a full-time job when you're wedding planning. And so there is absolutely going to be grief of it. And it's not someone who passed away, but it's the passing away of a moment that you thought you were going to be able to enjoy. And that's real. That's absolutely real. What do you have ready to offer my brides or my listeners who are brides, who are watching this YouTube video or listening to the podcast? What do you have for them?
Oh my gosh, you guys, I am excited for this. I have a treat for you. I call it the Wedding Budget Optimizer. It basically is this nifty tool that helps you get your budget figured out in order and then helps you stay in your budget all throughout the wedding planning process. And it does it in a simple way and a straightforward way. It makes it kind of easy, just all throughout the whole process.
Listeners love easy because wedding planning can be hard. So give it to us.
Yeah. So basically, it helps keep you from overspending. I think I might have already said that. And it helps ease the stress, which I definitely already said. It's got two components, essentially. There's a budget tracker and an expense tracker. The budget tracker helps you out, especially if you're not really sure how much you need to be budgeting for the different categories. It's got common percentages, like a range for each category, to give you an expectation of what you might be running into as you start looking at vendors. So you have an idea of how much to allocate. As you are spending money, you'll enter your expenditures in the expense tracker. There's a drop down for what category it falls into, and the spreadsheet automatically updates each of your remaining balances in the categories. Wow. As you go, so you always know how much money you have left to spend.
Wow, that's amazing. Or as a friend once told me, how much money you can save and not have to spend.
Oh, I love
Many of my brides wanted to work with me and I was out of their budget, would borrow from other buckets of budget.
Yes.
So I totally get that concept.
Yes.
But I always like to make sure people know that you don't have to spend your whole budget. You can put that toward a house or a car or something else at some point in the future as well. That is amazing. So
yeah, There's one last little bit about it, is that it's not just a spreadsheet. There is also a PDF printable. If you are kind of spreadsheet phobic, you can use the PDF printable. Now, of course, it's not going to have the magic that does the calculations for you, but there are instructions so that you can keep track of it all yourself.
That is amazing, because not everyone, likes spreadsheets. I do, but not everyone does. Oh, that's wonderful. So I will make sure to get all of this juicy information from Ashleigh and make sure that it's all in the show notes on my website, and all the links will be in the YouTube or the podcast information. It'll have Ashleigh's contact information in there. So if you are interested in working with her to have her help you on your wedding planning, she is available for that. So we'll go ahead give you her contact information and she can get to you. Well, gosh, Ashleigh, thank you so much. This was such good information. Really excited that you agreed to be on today and you were so enthusiastic and put together this information for us. It is extremely valuable, especially right now. And even if not everything is applicable to you or your wedding, other bits are so good. And if you happen to be listening to this, share it with a friend or watching it. Share it with a friend that you know is getting married, because I know that this will help them as well. Thank you so much, Ashleigh.
Thank you for having me. I had a blast. Bye.
Yeah.